having a center where we exchange ideas about the things we exchange ideas about is one thing. And as I said earlier, a few days ago, actually it was yesterday, you know, you have meeting places and you have centers and conference centers, but the International Theosophical Center is more than that. It is a spiritual retreat center, and we talk about those things that are very close to us. But next to that, I think it's also very important that we look at being together as something that is important, but next to all the talk, we should also have an eye open for beauty, for the arts, and that is what we are going to do tonight. We're going to have a wonderful musician playing for us. After that, we will have a presentation by Arend Heijbroek, whom you all know and who doesn't want to stand up. He will have to stand up later on. And after that, we close with another fine piece of music. My father was a musician. And he always told me that there are two instruments of instruments. The first one is the piano. And the second instrument of instruments is the guitar. 6 strings, sometimes 12. And in order to play that instrument properly, you have to work hard. It's like studying Theosophy. I tried to play the guitar, and I tell you what, it didn't really work out. So I chose Theosophy. I hope that worked out. But tonight, we have the guitarist of the guitarists of the Netherlands here. I was introduced to him through an email with a link, and I listened to his music while still in Brazil. And I was really, well, flabbergasted. He plays wonderful music, a beautiful combination of classical music, some modern tunes, and also some blues influences. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to present to you tonight a wonderful guitarist, Rob Kietselaar. Wow. It's every time I see a guitarist, you know, I hear 6 strings and I see 200 fingers. Wonderful. Thank you so much. We go to the second part of our program. There will be no interval. Afterwards, you will be able to have a drink and chat a little bit. The next part is an introduction for many of you who are here for the first time to the International Theosophical Center. And the introduction will be done by someone who is, you know, now willing to stand up, Mr. Arend Heijbroek.
All right, good evening, my friends. I make use of the opportunity to extend a very warm welcome from the Council of our beloved International Theosophical Center to this very inspiring International Theosophical Conference. Jan and I made a little joke over a year ago. Well, the ITC at the ITC may be confusing, but it really catches. And, well, you're here, so you're caught. I must say that I'm a bit nervous to have to talk to you, to such an exquisite audience tonight. I'm a bit nervous, but I just heard that it is slightly less dangerous than bungee jumping. So, all right. Friends, what I did for tonight, the time is somewhat limited, so I cherry-picked some events out of the history of this center, which may be to some extent related, hopefully related towards these days. I'm talking about the past, I'm talking about the present, and about the future, and they're all connected. But the center continues to change. And if the center would not have had that capacity to change, we would not be sitting here, and I would not be standing here. So prepare for the journey. The story begins with Mrs. Mary van Ege. She and her family built a holiday home here called the Dunes over 100 years ago, 1912. And the dunes, called the dunes, you can clearly see there are dunes all around. You may recognize the house. You have made a walk there, but you can see small bushes and dunes there were indeed, because the house overlooked the sea at that moment. Now the trees are much taller, but those days it was on the shore of the sea. Mary van Ege got this house, this whole estate, out of the divorce of her husband. A large estate, 40 acres of land, a very big house, and actually she didn't know what to do with it. But she invited guests, relevant guests, and see what would happen. And one day, one of her guests was Rabindranath Tagore. And he invited her to come over to India, to his ashram, his very special place. And then she made the journey, and during that journey, on top of a mountain, she got a spiritual experience, a voice telling her, you have to do something special with this estate, with this house. Because actually she planned to sell this whole estate, because what to do as a woman alone with such a large house. And by the end, she donated, as a result of she donated the estate to Annie Besant in 1925. So 1925 is the beginning of the ITC, of this ITC as a Theosophical Center. At that time, Annie Besant was looking at a place to train young people for ceremonial work. And Krishnamurti, who was also here, he had been here, we have his signature in our guest book, he contributed to make that contact, the connection, including a few others. So that was a very important element. So she donated, she received Annie Besant received the center in the name of the masters. As I said, the work at those days was to train young people for ceremonial work. And the objects to foster the principle of universal brotherhood and peace is still the object of the center today. Here you can see Annie Besant. This picture was taken in the garden of St. Michael's House. On the one side of her was Gina Rayadasa, who was the fourth president of the Theosophical Society. And on the other side, that's Bishop Wedgwood. That's the man standing there, and the other creature there is the dog, but we don't know how the dog was called. So there was a strong relationship, particularly with the work of the Liberal Catholic Church. And this is the first chapel built here on the estate. As you can see, in 1925, a chapel for 16 people to be able to sit there. But from the beginning, there was an enormous energy going on in this center. It was really amazing. So the year after that, they made a huge extension of this chapel. And the year after that, and that extension was not suitable enough. They didn't like that enough. So they made this very large wooden church, seating 300 people. Can you imagine? Within 2 years' time of actually nothing, it was just a family estate, bringing together and building such a very large church, and that was really needed for the work. And this was built in the winter of 27-28. And as you can see here, it attracted crowds. It attracted a lot of people for the Liberal Catholic Church. I do not know why, but when I looked at this picture again last night, I was thinking about the American movie Men in Black. Well, this is a bit the opposite. But they were all in smart dresses. But what happened? These were quite remarkable times. I'm not sure, some of you may have read the book Years of Awakening, which describes the early years of J. Krishnamurti. And in those days, this center was an important center where leading members of the Adyar family were active, related to this work of the center, but at the same time they were looking around to appoint apostles around Krishnamurti, because Krishnamurti was considered to be the new world teacher, and a lot of that took place here at this center in those days. But what happened? 11 days after the consecration of that very big church, well, I don't have to tell you. This brought Wedgwood, who was really the inspirer of the first few years here, to the conclusion that apparently this large church and this center was not to happen. And he sold this center, and he took the insurance money, and together with that capital, he started Teckles Park in the United Kingdom. So we have really a historic link with Teckles Park in the United Kingdom. But what happened? Mary van Eege, the first picture, bought back the center and donated the center for the second time. So that's quite remarkable. And that's one of the reasons why I start with the picture, because this lady made tremendous effort, efforts and sacrifices, that was the word I was looking for, to make this happen. Another picture, and you may remember, and I'll show you another picture of another building. But this was, at those days, there was the lodge building for the Theosophical Society. The church seating 300 people, and this was a very small, fairly small lodge building, which was later used as a hostel for people to stay in. Then this is the picture of the original Besant Hall. So you think you are in the first Besant Hall. This is actually the second Besant Hall. Built in the same time as this large church. So in the winter of 27-28, a very large building built for ceremonial work. It was built as a Masonic temple. So it was not only a very large church built, but at the same time, and that energy, it's just a proof, so to say, of the energy that was going around here. In just a few years' time, a very large Masonic temple. And the same day that the church burned down, within a few hours, the Masonic temple was split into 2 sections, and the masses for the Liberal Catholic Church went on, because they really thought it was important to continue every day with the Mass. This is a picture of the interior of that building. And that building was standing exactly at the same place as we are today. Here, have a look. This is a picture of the round table ceremony in the early 1950s. Round table is a ceremonial group for children who are gradually brought into the idea of a responsible and spiritual life. The organization still exists and works here at the center. But you can also see the interior of this building, and I have another one here in the late 1950s, how dark, how closed it was. Well, that's what you do for a ceremonial building, you can imagine. Very, very dark, very close. This is the curtain halfway of the building, so one section for the church and another section for TS work and more public ceremonial activities. And this building also burned down in 1965. So we have a very warm relationship with the fire spirits. And that meant that there was the opportunity for a new beginning. And then Rukmini, who was the head of this center at that moment, really felt that something new should be built. And that's the building we're in at this moment. Clearly distinct from the past. The very closed, internal-looking building. She said it must look out to the nature. We should have places for art performances here, with rooms for artists, and so on. So clear, distinct decision made in the late 1960s. Help imagine what the center would have looked like if those old buildings were still standing here. What an enormous impact that would have on our activities. And as I said, we would not be sitting here because it was so internal look and closed, internal focused, these buildings, and buildings which were, for practical reasons, very difficult to maintain. Wooden buildings in this wet environment, also that would have been really a disaster. Then the next step is the late 80s and the early 1990s. After the passing away of Rukmini as the head of this center, it was decided to make a formal link with Adyar, because up to that moment, that link was not there. And that meant that the center was much more seen as the European home of the Theosophical Society. Before that, it was so in words, but then it was really realized. And that meant that with the support of a lot of members, a lot of sections of the TS here in Europe and also outside of Europe, we were able to build better facilities, Crystal House, Crystal Hall, so that the people could come here and really more or less celebrate the fact that this is the European home of the TS. And we're also renting this out to non-theosophical groups which work along similar lines as our own, and our own core values, which I will discuss a little bit later. And Manya, who's sitting there, is responsible for renting out to these groups. And at the moment we have some 70 groups on our list who regularly come here and do their activities. Sometimes we have 5 activities at the same time taking place at this center. And we're very, very happy to see that the center is so very well used. I'll come back to some elements of that later. Here you can also see that we have changed our house style. So even, and that this house style was designed by Ingmar, who is the partner of Manja. We have, you can hardly see it, but you may have seen it a bit earlier on other documents. We have been able to add roses under the emblem of the TS, which stand for beauty. And as Jan just told us, beauty is an important element of the work and the experience of this center, because through beauty we feel that truth can reveal itself. Since the beginning, the aims of the center have remained the same, but we have put down what here you can see we call it the role of the center. Actually, it is the mission of the center, but we did not want to use that word mission because it could well be misunderstood, as you can imagine. And you can see here that we really want to be an open, inspiring spiritual center where we invite people from all over the world to work on the process of human regeneration through inner transformation. These are very important elements for the work of the TS. And as I said, we have also wrote down for ourselves and made it very clear that this center is not only for ADR or TS members. It has a much broader role, but at the same time, we have strengthened our Theosophical identity. That's one of the interesting paradoxes, so to say, in which we work, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Paradoxes, in my view, are very important for such a center. Here I've listed the core values of the center. Human regeneration, as I just told you, freedom of thought, and beauty and service. And human regeneration, freedom of thought, are also very clear criteria along which we measure which group we allow here to work and which group not. So no, groups with no dogmas, no gurus, etc. are working here. And this is also very much in line with our three working areas: study, meditation, and service. Human regeneration is much where you can do that, try to do that by study alone, but we feel that meditation is inner transformation is a very important. Meditation is a very important element of inner transformation. The paradoxes, as I said earlier, is another important, actually stimulating element in our work, which prevents us to stagnate and results in rooms for inquiry and make this center alive. And a very important paradox, of course, is the quiet atmosphere that we like to protect of this center, while at the same time we want to reach out to the world, which is very restless. And we have to find our way there. If we are too protective, we don't have contact with the outer world. If we have too much of the outer world here, we lose our identity as a peaceful center. So that's one of the paradoxes, and we are finding our way there. We have positioned this center as a study and retreat center, two very important elements of our work. And therefore we decided to invest further in our library. So we are really involved in what we could often call a quality push for the library, from a traditional lodge library to a dedicated study library with a clear focus. In addition to the library of the Dutch section, which is 3 times the size of ours, we can offer unique study opportunities. We have built last year 3 self-catering cottages. So from now on, it is possible for people to come here to study, make use of our library, make use of the library in Amsterdam because they are connected. We can easily get books from Amsterdam and do a study, do research, write an article. Here, the cottages are self-catering. You have your own kitchen, your own bathroom. You can have a bike, so you can do your own shopping and use the facilities of the center. An important element. We have meditation rooms here at the center, one of them here and one in St. Michael's House. And for some people, it's also relevant to know that we have some very fine statues, a Buddha statue and a Tara statue in the garden of St. Michael's House. Yes, so this center is part of the Adia family. But I think I made it clear that our work is much broader than that. We feel it's our responsibility, but we are here for to the service of the world. We also consider this a laboratory. It's a place where Theosophists live and work together. One of the few places, I'm not sure how many there are in the world, comparable to this center. A center with a special atmosphere where all the activities are more or less working in a similar lines and strengthening each other. We often make the comparison of a diamond, which has also many different colors, but together they are the most beautiful diamond. If it would have only one color, that probably would be boring, but just the play of the different colors, each activity contributing to the atmosphere of the center, that is actually what we aim at. And we often say the center only works if it works. Maybe simple, but it's actually a deep one. We have to work through activities. We cannot be dormant. So the center is here for nearly 90 years. Next year that will be the case. And we will continue to change. We are changing. We changed a lot. If you see where we are today and compare that with the early days, that's an enormous difference. I must say that we are very happy with where we are and that we are not really working along the lines of the 1920s. Of course, there were very rich and beautiful moments, but this is where we are today. And in the future, we will continue to change. And this requires us to be very, very sensitive and try to feel what is the right direction for this center. And I can imagine that as an outcome of this conference, once again, we will be colored and will be influenced, and we need to discuss that and see whether there are elements that we need to change. I end up with saying that I hope, we hope that you may enjoy your visit here and you may benefit from the special atmosphere from this center, which is so close to our heart. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's often said words are great, and I think Arend did a wonderful performance. I would almost say a wonderful presentation, of course. And we go further with a performance of a brilliant guitarist. Rob, the stage is yours. 6 strings. Thank you so much. Give him a round of applause. Wonderful music. And as you know, sometimes music speaks louder than words. Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. Okay, we have some reverse.